I'm here because my 3-month-old grandson was murdered. I think my son Steven's girlfriend Elke did it. I don't think Elke was ready to be a mom at 19 years old. I did get the impression she was stressed out. I got a call from Elke saying that she had taken the baby to the emergency room. He wasn't eating and he was fussy. She did take him to the hospital while Steven was sleeping. That seems very strange to me. One of the only ways for a 3-month-old to get a subdermal hematoma is by being violently shaken. I do believe he was violently shaken. Lucas was in a medically induced coma for 3 days. Doctors told Steven Lucas no longer had brain activity and they needed to make the decision to take him off of life support. My aunt was at the hospital with them, and she said Elke refused to hold the baby. Elke did not cry. She said she looked like a guilty puppy. The coroner ruled Lucas's death a homicide and said that he was shaken. 1 week ago, my family learned that the Kansas Bureau of Investigation believed that my son Steven murdered his son. Makes me angry. I do know that Steven was alone with the baby the night before he was taken to the hospital, and for that reason, they think he might be involved. Steven is facing potential prison time. Whoever shook that baby shook him not long before they took him to the hospital. I do think that was Elke. The reason that she didn't wake Steven up to go to the emergency room with her is because she knew what she had done and she didn't want Steven to know. He's going to take the fall for her if she doesn't step up and tell the truth.
Well, Melissa, I'm glad to meet you, but sorry for the circumstances.
Same.
And I'm very sorry for your loss.
Thank you. It's a feeling I wouldn't wish on anybody. It broke me. There's something, I'm not the same person I was a year ago.
And how did you find out about it?
Elke had called and sent me a message on Facebook Messenger. It said she had the baby in the ER. And I asked what was going on, and she called, and she said he wasn't eating well, he was fussy. And I asked her where Steven was. She said at home asleep. And I couldn't understand what was going on. She said they were going to fly the baby to Denver. And I still don't understand why my son wasn't at the hospital with that baby and with her. I sent my daughter Devin to go wake him up.
Why would she message you? You live 5 hours away.
I do, yes.
Why was she messaging you from the ER when she hasn't yet contacted the baby's father?
That's a good question. I have no idea.
And you call
My daughter to go wake up
your daughter.
Steven.
Why did you not call Steven?
I tried
And
several
he didn't
times.
answer.
He didn't answer. He said his ringer was off. So I sent my daughter Devin, who just physically went in the house and got him up.
So Devin went over and woke him up. And
Correct.
what did he say when she woke him up?
I don't know.
You say that you thought Elke's behavior with Lucas was really strange all along, not just that morning, but you thought her behavior with this child as a mother was, well, you said it was weird, detached, odd. What do you mean by that?
All of those things, yeah. I don't think she didn't. You know, when you have a baby, it's just everybody's happy, and she just was not. I remember her saying things like, the next one. It just like after the baby died, it was always, well, the next time, the next one. I don't understand that. Who talks like that?
Because she's 4.5 months pregnant now.
She is.
Now, she took the baby to the emergency room and they said, well, this is very serious. This baby, they did scans and they said, this baby has a serious brain injury
Right.
here, and we're not equipped to handle the child at this rural hospital. We're going to need to airlift the baby to Denver.
Correct.
And so they did that. She flew on the plane with the baby to Denver. She tells Steven, you need to drive to Denver and meet us there. At that point, the baby is on life support. And they say after a few days, this is on they take the baby in on the morning of the 11th, and on the 13th, they say, this child is brain dead. There's no activity, and the child is brain dead. The only thing that's keeping the child alive are the machines. And they make the very hard decision to turn the machines off and let the baby pass because there's just virtually no hope. It's devastating injuries to the brain. I assume at that point, difficult decision for the parents that they were very distraught, emotional, upset. Were you there?
I was not. Stephen called and told me that they had to make that decision.
And how was he emotionally?
He was not okay. He was, I don't even think distraught is the word.
Was he crying?
He was crying. He was crying. And I just told him, I'm coming, right now, I'm leaving. And I did. It took me 10 minutes to throw some things in a duffel bag, and I was on my way.
And so he was sobbing and just inconsolable.
He was inconsolable, yeah.
How about Elke?
I didn't speak with her. I mean,
were you at the funeral?
Absolutely, yes.
And how was Steven at the funeral?
Inconsolable.
And Elke?
Not a tear. Not a tear.
How was she afterwards?
She seemed relieved, to be honest, lighter, happier.
So you're basically accusing her of murder.
Absolutely, yes.
And you're making no bones about it. You believe that Elke murdered this child.
I do.
And that she's going to let your son take the fall for it.
Again, I do. Yep.
And in all fairness, you weren't there.
That's correct.
You didn't see what happened. And you've only seen this baby 3 times.
Correct.
Because you live 5 hours away.
That's right.
So that means you've only seen her with this baby 3 times. You don't have a lot of data to base all this on. And you're advocating for your son, which I would 100% expect you to do. I would think there's something wrong with you if you weren't advocating for your son.
Right.
But you're not objective here.
No, I'm not. And I'm the first one to admit that I'm not objective.
And I just acknowledge that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you acknowledge that as well. You don't want to see him go to jail, and you don't believe that he's capable of doing this.
Either one, correct, yeah.
On Mother's Day, Elke and Lucas went over to her parents' house. So I had Lucas by myself from 4 p.m. to 8 p.m.
He was acting like his normal self when I left.
Lucas wasn't very interested in eating, and he had been put down for a nap around 7 o'clock.
I came home from my mother's around 8 o'clock.
As far as I know, he was still sleeping in his bassinet.
I went in there to go check on him, and he was grunting and stuff, and I asked Steven to come look at him.
He was just going,
He told me if he looked the same way that next morning to go take him to the hospital. I was the last person to see him that night. We got up around 7:30. He didn't look like his normal self. He wouldn't eat. He was still grunting. I took him to the hospital.
When I woke up, Elke had already taken Lucas to the hospital.
They did an MRI. They found out about the brain injury.
Someone had to have shaken Lucas because there's no other way those injuries could have happened. They thought the injuries were serious enough that they needed to fly him to Children's Hospital in Denver.
They brought him into the ER. They put him on oxygen.
Lucas was in a coma for 3 days. He was brain dead, and that it was only the machines that were keeping him alive.
They told us the best thing we could do is take him off the life support.
When they took him off, I actually held him as he passed away. It was probably the hardest thing I'll ever have to do in my life. About a week ago is when I found out that I was their prime suspect. The coroner's report says that it had to have happened when I was alone with Lucas in that time frame of 3 to 8 o'clock.
I don't think Steven's capable of harming our son.
The thought of doing that kind of act to any child, and especially my own, makes my stomach sick. I'm potentially facing prison time and The charges, would be felony level. They only asked me once if I thought Elke did it, which I told them I didn't think that she would have.
Steven's mom thinks that I am the cause of Lucas's death.
My mother thinks that it was Elke, knowing that I wasn't capable of doing this to my child. I would 100% that there's just no way she could have done it. Lucas was like her entire world. I'm here to have Dr. Phil help clear my name and erase suspicions of me being involved with my son's death.
Let me say to both of you, I'm very, very sorry for your loss. I just can't imagine what it must be like to lose your child. I'm so sorry that you've had to experience this. Just very sorry that you've lost this precious baby. So I hate that for both of you. So please accept my condolences for that.
Thank you.
You were with Elke in the emergency room before they got on the plane and left.
Yes, although I did leave just before they flew out, so I could try to get there not too long after they did, because the flight was shorter than the drive.
To get a head start.
Yeah.
Okay. Elke, what did you and Steven talk about at the emergency room when he arrived?
We really didn't talk much. We were like more in shock.
And what was the first thing you said to Steven when he walked into the emergency room?
I honestly don't remember what I said to him. I was just, I think, trying to explain like what the doctors were saying.
Steven, what was the first thing you said to Elke when you walked into the emergency room?
I don't 100% remember exactly what I said, but I think it was something along the line of just trying to figure out what all was going on and what they were doing and getting ready to do with him.
Well, were you surprised to wake up and find out that they were not home, that they in fact had gone to the hospital without you?
No, I wasn't surprised, as me and Elke had talked the previous night about taking Lucas to the hospital if he hadn't changed or gotten any better in the morning.
It seems odd to me that a mother would wake up and find her infant son in distress to the point that she needed to take him to the hospital and not wake up his father to participate in that. What did you think was wrong with Lucas when you were making all these preparations to go to the hospital?
I wasn't too sure because Elke only gave me a brief explanation of what they were saying. More along the lines just has told me that he had a subdermal hematoma, and I wasn't 100% sure what that meant, but it definitely did sound serious.
Elke, at that point, you had talked to the doctors, and had they already done a brain scan?
Yes, they did.
How long had you been at the hospital before you called Steven?
It was probably maybe like 20 to 30 minutes. I don't remember exactly the time when I called him.
Okay, sure. Why did you not wake him up that morning?
My mind was more of getting him in because of the way he looked. I just wanted to get there as fast as I could.
Mm-hmm. And how did he look that morning when you walked in?
He was still grunting, not wanting to eat, and not like really, I don't know, like he didn't really have any like wet diapers or anything like that. So I took him to the hospital like me and Steven discussed.
Well, let's go backwards a little bit. This is the morning of May 11th that we're talking about, the day after Mother's Day. On the morning of May 10th, which was Mother's Day, when you woke up that morning, you got Lucas up and got him ready and left the house with him and took him to your grandmother's house, correct?
Yes.
Okay. What was the routine that morning? Typical, just what you normally do with Lucas in the morning?
He was normal, eating everything. Like I said, I didn't start noticing anything until that night, and me and Steven weren't really thinking of anything like this was happening to him. We were just thinking like maybe he had a stomach ache.
But the morning of the 10th, the day before, you were in the emergency room and had a diagnosis of subdural hematoma. You got up that morning and everything was fine. The morning before, everything was normal, correct?
Yes.
And he usually eats how many ounces?
He was eating quite a bit, actually.
4 ounces, 6 ounces, 8
like,
ounces? What was he normally consuming?
I think it was about 8. I think it was about 8 ounces he was eating.
Okay. And so that morning of the 10th, before you went to your grandmother's house, you got up and got him dressed, changed his diaper and all, and did he eat 8 ounces?
Yeah, he ate about that, I believe.
Okay, so you go to your grandmother's house, and there are some family members there, and of course they're making over the baby because he's just cute as a bug. So you were there for a couple of hours, right?
Yes.
Okay,
correct.
and how was Lucas then?
He seemed fine. I didn't notice anything wrong with him. And then after I left, I dropped him off here with Steven, and I went to my mom's for Mother's Day because he wanted to spend some time with his boy.
Mm-hmm. And so basically what you're saying is when you dropped him off with Steven about 2 in the afternoon, he was fine. 6 hours later, you come home and he's not fine. Steven, what did you and Elke see at 8 o'clock when you went in to check on him?
He was making these small grunting noises, not having any interest in taking a bottle that she tried and both I tried as well to get him to eat.
So in that 6 hours between 2 o'clock and 8 o'clock, he somehow had deteriorated from being his normal self, eating and being active, to kind of making guttural noises, not eating at all, hadn't had a wet or dirty diaper, and was not okay at 8 o'clock. Some way or another, he deteriorated during that 6 hours, correct?
Yeah, that's correct.
Steven doesn't spank his children. I've never witnessed Steven raise his voice. I do think he's incapable of harming a child. Every single thing that Elke has done since the minute that baby passed away, it's off. I've never, ever seen her shed a tear since that little baby died. Not at his funeral, not the day after they got home, ever.
This was not the first time that this baby had been taken to the emergency room, correct?
Yes, it was just to a pediatrician and then to a second one in a town close by for a second opinion on an issue we were dealing with.
The medical records that you provided us, thank you very much for that, by the way, addressed weight and parenting, and this was on April 27th of 20, and the medical record reads, Lucas had fallen off the growth curve despite mother's report of excessive intake. Some concerns noted with parent knowledge, and will provide instruction videos. Failure to thrive. Parents may need additional support. Mother noted to have some needs with care of the child, and we will make referral to the Department of Child Family Services for this assistance. This pediatrician felt like the child was underweight, and despite reports of being fed excessively, they thought maybe something was not going right here, correct?
Yes, that's correct. We were taking him to the health clinic for a program for like formula assistance.
Right.
And they said that he was underweight and not following the right curve of his age and length, so he wasn't where he was supposed to be. They had us stay overnight in the hospital with him so they could monitor every time he ate, how much he ate, every time he had a wet diaper, and stuff like that.
But now, 2 days later, you went to another pediatrician for a second opinion, and they said, and I quote, not clear why DCF was involved, as based on our scale here today, he has averaged more than a half an ounce a day since birth, does not appear to have any signs of trauma, and is bonding well with father. So they didn't see it the same way when you got a second opinion, correct?
That is correct. They didn't see it the same way. The doctor I took him to in the town said they couldn't understand why they were saying he was failure to thrive. She did say that he was a little under his curve, but he was perfectly healthy.
Right. Now, you mentioned that during this visit to the emergency room on 5/11, there was a differential diagnosis consideration includes but is not limited to non-accidental trauma, concern because patient has a bruise along his left mandible, this is along the jawline, bulging fontanel, disconjugate gaze. Now, according to the mother, the child was eating his normal 4 ounces about every 4 hours yesterday, and after 7 p.m., 15 hours prior to arrival, the patient stopped any further oral intake. Now, you mentioned somewhere in here that there was mention of the child having rib injuries. Stephen, who told you that?
It was the doctors at our emergency room who had told us that once I had arrived after Elke had taken him that morning, that he had healing fractures on his ribs, but that they were a couple weeks old, which was a complete shock to me as he had never shown any signs of being in pain or being uncomfortable.
Well, that's nowhere in the medical records. They told you that, but they didn't put that in the medical records?
Yes, that's correct.
What do you make of that?
I'm not really too sure what to make of it. It's a really surprising thing that they didn't include that in his medical record.
I do believe that someone had shaken him, and I don't know if it was on purpose or if it was an accident and they were too scared to say something. I do believe that they're still out there. I would like for the person to come forward and confess to what they had done to Lucas. I would definitely want them to be held responsible and face the full weight of their actions.
Elke, how do you feel about the fact that Stephen's mother, Melissa, thinks you injured this child and that you did it on purpose?
It kind of makes me upset that she would think I would be capable of doing those things.
Stephen, do you have any suspicion that Elke, in a weak moment, may have done something that she regrets?
I don't think so, as looking back on how I saw her when she was with Lucas, she was always incredibly patient and loving and caring to him.
I'm a father, and we've raised 2 boys from infancy to adulthood, and I can tell you that there is no theory under which the mother of my children would ever wake up and one of them be so ill that they needed to go to the hospital and she not come to me immediately and say, our baby is sick, we need to take him to the hospital. COVID, no COVID, pandemic, quarantine, no, it would not matter. I'm sorry, I cannot wrap my head around why she did not wake you up and at least tell you I'm taking our baby to the hospital. Now, are you telling me that that doesn't strike you as odd?
I mean, that is completely understandable, and I guess I would say it is kind of odd, but I'm guessing it's more along the lines of maybe not thinking it was something that was serious.
Elke, you slept with Lucas that night, correct?
Yeah, he slept in the bassinet and I slept right by him, yes.
Okay. And did you wake up or tend to him at all during the night?
Yes, I did.
And was he the
I
same?
changed him a few
Was he the
times
same during the
and-
night? Was he still making the guttural sounds and everything like he was at 8 o'clock?
He was still grunting and stuff, but, and then I did change him, and fed him too, but,
You're saying now that he ate during the night?
I said he ate a little bit during the night, but not as much as his normal self, no.
The records say, according to the mother, the child was eating his usual 4 ounces about every 4 hours yesterday, and after 7 p.m., 15 hours prior to arrival, the patient stopped any further oral intake. So you told the hospital that he had not eaten since 7 p.m. the night before, and now you're saying you fed him during the night.
Like I said, I fed him a little bit, but that was about it.
But you told the hospital he hadn't eaten in 15 hours, and now you're saying you fed him during the night.
I don't really remember if I said that or not, but I know that he did eat a little bit. Like I said, I don't know.
Your baby died. I don't understand that.
This is the first time I'm hearing that you fed him during the night. Did you know she fed him during the night, Stephen?
No, I wasn't aware that he had eaten anything after 8 o'clock.
So this is the first time you're hearing that she woke up and fed the baby during the night.
Yes, it is the first time that I'm hearing this.
Well, clearly there's more to talk about here, but we're out of time for today, and I want to continue to unravel this mysterious death of this precious child. We're going to delve deeper into the tragedy. Stephen's family members are speaking out. What his sister had to say about Elke as a mother, and you'll hear that tomorrow. And I've made the point that when we're hearing from Stephen's family, they're clearly not objective. And they acknowledge that, as do I. So we have to take that knowing that they've got an agenda, which is to protect their family member.
Tomorrow on an all-new Dr. Phil.
The authorities believe that there was foul play here.
A suspicious death.
Elke, is part of you suspect that Stephen shook this baby?
Now.
Stephen says that Lucas had fractured ribs.
I am convinced that Elke hurt that baby.
The mother is pregnant again.
It was a surprise. I'm still not over Lucas.
It scares me to death that they're having this baby. It's terrifying.
That's tomorrow.
I want to thank my guests today. I'm interested in finding out what happened to this precious child. That's my primary agenda. Now, for more information about today's show, log on to drphil.com. We'll be talking about this on Facebook, probably in our Facebook group called Dr. Phil Fanatics. It's a private group where we discuss the shows and you get information you don't get anywhere else. So that's where we'll be discussing this, I'm sure. We'll see you next time. Thank you.
A parent's nightmare.
I think Steven's girlfriend did it.
So you're basically accusing her of murder.
Was their baby shaken to death?
I would never hurt my own son.
You believe she's going to let your son take the fall for it.
New Dr. Phil. Check your local listings.